Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be providing my book review of the book Plagues of Night by David R. George, the fifth book in the Star Trek Typhon Pact series. To give a brief overview, of course, I'm a huge Star Trek fan, huge Star Trek books fan. Some of the Star Trek book series I've absolutely loved, some of them I've really not liked, and then some have been kind of mixed. This is a mixed series because what I thought book one was mediocre. I thought that it was mediocre, didn't do anything great. Book two, I thought was not good, not enjoyable at all. Book three, I thought was highly mixed. Like, portions of the book were amazing and portions of the book were terrible. And then I thought that book four was just superb. So I recently read this one and I thought that was a superb book and I was all excited about it. And so I was going into book five. There is a novella in between, but it's not in print, so I'm not reading it. But this is book five of the series, and it's written by David R. George, who wrote book three, Rough Beasts of Empire, the one that I kind of liked elements and disliked other elements. And ironically, I have a very similar viewpoint on this one, but it's actually reversed. In Rough Beasts of Empire, I loved all of the political intrigue and all the action sequences and the whole stuff with Spock on Romulus. And I did not like the storyline with Sisko or with the Robinson or the DS9 stuff. In Plagues of Night, I loved the Sisko Deep Space Nine stuff. Sisko and the Robinson, and then you also have Deep Space Nine. Those plot lines were superb, so much fun to read. Give me more of that. Could not care less about the action plot line, because I just think that David R. George is not the best action writer for the series. Everyone praises David Mack for his action. His action is pretty good. I think that James Swallow is on par with David Mack for action, and I think that John Jackson Miller is better than anyone when it comes to writing Star Trek action. But I think that that's just not David R. George's strong suit. His strong suit is writing the characters of DS9. I read some other books by him recently, and I never love his books. But what I do love about his books is that he gets Deep Space Nine better than anyone else. And that's why I really, I still am willing to read his books, because he gets Deep Space Nine, and that's why this book works so well. One of the characters on Deep Space Nine that really works in this book is Captain Ro Laren. I think that she is probably the standout Deep Space Nine character other than Bashir. I think that Bashir is like the GOAT. No one will ever top that. But Ro Laren is really close second. And her plotline here is great. She doesn't have too much to do until the very end, but you get to understand her past, and you understand becoming the head of Deep Space Nine. You understand the burden of leadership. You understand her complicated relationship with Starfleet and with the Bajoran leadership. You understand her relationship with Quark, which is so weird that I love their relationship so much. It should be the most gross, disturbing relationship, but it is actually the most, sweet relationship to read about. I love reading about her relationship with Quark. And the person who does it best is David R. George. So I hope I read more about their relationship in the future. I seem to get him snippets of it, but I've never gotten a dedicated book that has a lot of them in it. But when they have cute banter, it's really cute. I also thought that Sisko had a much better plot line than Rough Beasts of Empire. So in this book, the previous book, he basically leaves his wife and his newborn daughter and basically goes off to serve in Starfleet and to go on this ship and abandon them. Why? Because A, he thinks that Starfleet needs him. But B, it's because he is afraid that if he stays with them, they will die. It's kind of that old Spider-Man trope. There's the old Spider-Man trope that believes that Spider-Man cannot be with, Mary Jane or Gwen Stacy or whoever the love interest is. He can never be with them because to be with them is to put them in danger, and he does not want to put them in danger. That's where Sisko is in this book. It is, if I am with my daughter, if I am with my wife, I will put them in danger. This book, he still has that opinion, but he starts getting like some sense knocked into him that says, I mean, it's your daughter. You should spend time with your daughter. And it's kind of like they were willing to be with him. He just wasn't willing to be with them. And I do not like when books write about divorces or separations or anything like that. But I like that this book basically is trying to pull Cisco back into being a family man, to pull him back to be with Cassidy, that type of thing. And I hope we see more of that in the next book that I'll read next month. So I did like seeing his journey more in this. And we also had Lieutenant Tenmi, who got some great moments here. I don't think she's in the movies or shows at all, but she's been great in the books. She's got a real tragic story in the books, and I'm enjoying reading it. And I also did enjoy some of the political intrigue in this book, but because that isn't David R. George's strong suit, it felt like it was just inserted, and it felt like it was just like he had to put it in order to make the book work. And likewise, the climax of this book comes out of nowhere. It's way too big for the story he was writing, and it's way too big for him as an author. I think that if this had been under Mac's leadership or Swallow or anyone else's, I think that they might have handled the climax better. The climax here, and it's really hard not to talk about it without spoiling it because you don't want to spoil it, but if you've read this book or you've heard about this book, you might know what this climax that I'm talking about is. It sets a new era of Star Trek. It sets a new era of how they handle the DS9 plotline. And the problem is that this should have been part of a trilogy, and I think that book one, I think that the Typhon Pact series was an ill-advised series to begin with. For one, it's kind of covered too many bases, and it's trying to be as broad as possible. So you have one book that covers some DS9 characters, and then you have the Titan characters, and then you have some other DS9 and TOS characters, and then you have the Next Generation characters, and then you're going back to DS9, but there's a few Next Generation characters here. And they're just trying to cover too many bases. They should have had a dedicated DS9 trilogy where the first book is introducing all the Typhon Pact stuff, and the second book has all of the has the big climax of this book, and then the third book is what happens after the climax of this book. Unfortunately, they didn't do that, and it's because of that, it just feels like a very disjointed series. It feels like you have like ropes tied at all sides, and everyone's pulling you in different directions. That's what this series feels like, and so I just think it was ill-advised in the way it was produced. It's still an entertaining read in the sense that like you will be interested to find out the future, but it doesn't hook me like other Star Trek series do, and that's very sad to say. I will finish the series, but I am looking forward to reading other Star Trek books soon because I need something that's shorter, that's more direct, that gets to what I'm more interested in. So if you've read Plagues of Night, let me know your thoughts about it and about the Typhon Pact as a whole. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.